We pause in reflection today over Joseph. Joseph, the foster father of Jesus. He's mentioned mostly in the Gospel of Matthew. Very little attention is given to Joseph in the other three Gospels. In Luke's Gospel, which is a Gentile Gospel, in the genealogy of Jesus, it's a legal genealogy. It's traced from Joseph all the way back to Adam, a Gentile Gospel. In Matthew's Gospel, the genealogy, a Jewish genealogy, is traced from Abraham down to Joseph of the house of David. Now, these wouldn't seem very important to us, but they were very important to the members of the very early Christian communities. Matthew's Gospel, giving most attention to Joseph, is very strong in emphasizing the fact that he had dreams. He was led by the dreams. Joseph is never quoted to say any word. He's a listener. And he listened to dreams. He had 4 dreams. And Matthew, being a Jewish gospel, wants all of his hearers to remember the patriarch Joseph, who is mentioned, a very interesting story. You should read it sometime. It's in the last 10 chapters of the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible. And here Joseph, the patriarch Joseph, is a dreamer. Remember Lloyd Webber's The Amazing Technicolor Coat? That's Joseph, way back there, the preferred and most loved son of Jacob, which made the other sons jealous. And eventually he's sold into Egypt, and because he's a dreamer, he interprets the dreams of the Pharaoh. He becomes very, very important, and he's involved in the redemption of his people. The end of the book of Genesis now will begin the book of Exodus, the freedom of the people coming out of Egypt. Keep all that in mind now. And then we get to Joseph, and he has 4 dreams. The first dream is take Mary as your wife into your home. Fine. The second dream, after Jesus is born, his life is threatened by Herod. Take Jesus, the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt. Second dream. Third dream, it's time to come back from Egypt. So he returns from Egypt to Jerusalem. Then he has his 4th dream. The child isn't safe in Jerusalem anymore, so go north to Nazareth. So following the 4th dream, he goes north and he settles in Nazareth. Now that's the way the Gospel of Matthew gives us an understanding of Joseph. And by the way, if you go to Egypt today and you go to Alexandria, which is near Cairo, they will show you the house. This is the house in which the Holy Family lived now, you know. I mean, you have to be a light-minded tourist to believe it's the house, but they celebrate the time the Holy Family spent in Egypt there in Alexandria. The important thing about Joseph, he never says anything. He's a listener. And God knows we need the example of Joseph in our culture today. We are very bad listeners. We listen to respond. We don't listen to learn. I mean, think about the manner in which we say we're listening. When you're halfway through your question, I have the answer already. I know exactly where you're wrong, and I know where you're right. We don't listen. And he listens not just with his ears, he listens with his whole person. His listening is an act of faith. Would that be amazing if we could listen to one another that way? We could say, somehow God is going to speak to me through the other person. Now, it doesn't have to be a great revelation, but the manner in which I listen, I learn something about myself. It's not that you'll enlighten me. about your mind or your intelligence. You will teach me about myself. Listeners learn about themselves. Listeners are reflective. Listeners have a depth. We're so superficial in our society. We're so certain about everything. We're so arrogant about opinions. We don't listen to any opinion. Look at our politics. Who listens to one another in the world of politics? We have one party, the other party, and then we have independents who can go either way. But we don't listen to one another. If we could listen, we would make a lot of progress. So think about that. And to follow the example of Joseph, it would be good for us to say, I'm going to journey through this day, just today now, listening. Listening with the heart, listening with the whole person, not just with the ears. Did you ever get that phone call from somebody? You didn't expect to get the phone call. They don't have anything special to say, but you can tell right away when you get the call, they want somebody to listen to them. I am sure that many of the elderly persons that I visit or take the Eucharist to, they're alone. What do they want the most? They'd like somebody to listen to them. We're all yearning for somebody to listen to us. Did anybody ever stop you and say, wow, will you listen to me? Or did you ever think that way? Well, when that happens to you, remember Joseph, the great listener. And how when he listened, he learned about himself. He learned his mission. He learned what divine providence was calling him to follow in his life. And he appears in Matthew's gospel as the great listener. Never says anything, not a word. Is that the ideal husband, you think? He doesn't say anything, he just listens. And he learns and grows. I mean, a lot of women would say, Joseph is the example of a good husband. He just listens, and then he does what he hears. Oh, not sure about that, but I'll just throw it in there. We pause now for a moment of prayer.